After the development of Sonic Colors finished, a few members of Sonic Team began experimenting with ideas for a game. While working on Sonic Generations, this separate group within Sonic Team developed various prototypes of a different Sonic game with a different design philosophy and geometries regarding level design. So yeah, while they were working on Sonic Generations, there was a separate team working on an entirely different game at the same time. They initially wanted to focus on a game that could take advantage of various features on the 3DS, but with the announcement of the Wii U, development for a console version began, with the initial 3DS version being made alongside. What allowed Sonic Team to create two games simultaneously is the fact that Mario Kishimoto is back to direct this game, the guy who directed Sonic Colors. This is Kishimoto's second time directing a Sonic game, and he directs all the future Sonic games from here on out. Takashi Iizuka, of course, reprises his role as producer, which obviously, it shouldn't even be a surprise at this point. This guy lives and breathes Sonic. I don't think he'll ever leave Sonic Team. Like, what else is he gonna do? And Ken Pontac and Warren Graff are the writers. There's no Jun Sonoe in the composer role this time. I guess he was too busy with Sonic Generations. Instead, we have Tomoya Otani and Takahito Iguchi, two musicians that also helped work on Sonic Colors. This new Sonic game seems to have a very solid core of people who had worked on Sonic Colors, and the fact that it was developed with Nintendo exclusivity in mind again, it makes it even more shocking that they subverted gameplay styles so quickly and presented everybody with a very slow, platform-heavy Sonic game. Sonic Lost World is the title of this game. A lot of eyebrows were raised at its initial reveal in 2013. It was so different from anything seen before, not reminiscent of anything Sonic had experimented with in the past. Comparisons with Mario Galaxy were flying around, a lot of people calling for Sonic's head at the very idea of another franchise trying to experiment with different physics-based platforming, completely ignoring the fact that Sonic did this first in Sonic Adventure 2. It was definitely different. I don't think anybody expected them to shift away from the boost formula so quickly. The cylindrical level design stood out immediately, and the fact that Sonic moved at a severely reduced pace. The trailer revealed his new ability to run up or alongside walls, taking the possibility of platforming challenges to another level. The new alien-like enemies, the Deadly Six, led to a lot of speculation on their importance within the story, and what Dr. Eggman would be up to. Say what you want about Sonic Lost World, but it grabbed everybody's attention with its reveal. Though that's probably because everybody's Wii U was gathering dust waiting for games to come out. So if you did own a Wii U, then this was a pretty big deal. Well, if you care about Sonic anyway. I, for one, was excited for Sonic's new adventure. It looked promising. The art style was nice, the graphics looked good, the levels looked interesting and different. Now all I had to do was wait a couple of months to play it. I'm gonna let you in on a little fact about myself. This is the first Sonic game I bought on day one. I've been playing the series my whole life, but Sonic Lost World kind of holds a special place in my heart for that reason. Opinion was, unsurprisingly, split on release. I saw some review sites giving it like a 1 out of 5, and then another review site gave it a 9 out of 10, but Miiverse users were raging or loving the game. If you don't know what Miiverse is, I'm going to go on a huge tangent for a second. It is a little bit relevant to a game mechanic that I'll get into later, but essentially, Miiverse was Nintendo's very own social media that started on the Wii U, before eventually being implemented on the 3DS. Users would make a Mii for their profile and then join game communities, with thousands of other people also wanting to talk about the game. You could post text, you could draw, you could post screenshots from in the game. I found it really neat, and at a time when the Wii U felt like it had nobody buying it, it was heartwarming in a way to see thousands of others in a similar situation to myself, who just wanted to make friends and talk about games. To be honest, there was a lot of trolling or really childish posts from literal children, but I always found it charming. Some games incorporated features too that involve Miiverse, such as Splatoon and Nintendo Land, and Sonic Lost World does this as well, so that's why I'm kind of mentioning it. But I did use Miiverse at the time quite a lot and gauged the opinion on this game. It was very split. Now, I'm playing the PC version for this review, but I do still think it's relevant how the Miiverse was incorporated into the Wii U version of the game, because that was the one I've played the most. So when it comes down to it, I'll mention it again. I'm just letting you know it's there, and now we can move on to the game. Booting up the game, the alluring new destination that our adventure will take place on lingers in the background behind the logo and menu options. The Lost Hex, as it's known, is where this adventure takes place. A brand new environment that has a weird hexagonal design. I guess it's time for us to talk about the story. The first thing you see in Sonic Lost World is Sonic and Tails chasing Dr. Eggman through the sky as he has an animal capsule hostage. Sonic demands him to drop the critters, resulting in them free falling in the sky and a less than stellar attempt from Sonic at trying to rescue them. Eggman shoots the tornado out of the sky, with Tails having to perform an emergency landing onto the Lost Hex. It's here that Knuckles and Amy enter the plot, with their perspective being from the Earth that Sonic usually inhabits. They're both worried about the animals that Eggman is kidnapping, and then it's revealed that he is forcing them into robots just like the classic titles. Eggman's base is this weird pitch black room with a few spotlights. It must be quite hard for him to get any work done, but it's here that the Deadly Six linger in the background. Their race is new to the series, with them being Zeti, and Eggman has enslaved the six of them to help defeat Sonic. Now, I know Eggman is evil, but it's quite messed up how these people stand on two legs, can talk perfect English, and Eggman's enslaved them to do his work. That's crazy! Anyway, the Deadly Six's leader is interested to learn more about Sonic, and how he poses such a threat to Eggman. He sends one of his cohorts, Zaz, after the Blue Blur, who Sonic effortlessly defeats. In the second world, the fat gluttonous Zeti known as Zomom, what are these names, awaits Sonic, who once again, he effortlessly defeats. As you progress through the game, it's revealed that Eggman is controlling the Deadly Six using their cacophonic conch, which causes the Zeti pain if they disobey Eggman. After showcasing the conch, Eggman begins sucking the life out of planet Earth, but claims that he doesn't want to destroy the planet, so he's only borrowing energy. The leader of the Deadly Six, who we now know as Zavok, overhears this, and makes it clear to the audience that he wants to destroy the Earth in an act of revenge against Eggman's horrible enslavement. After Sonic beats Zomom for the second time, Eggman is just in the middle of the desert for some reason, showing off the conch in his hand. So Sonic, stupidly, and against Tails' pleas not to do it, Sonic kicks the conch out of Eggman's hand, and the Deadly Six go out of control, and they somehow possess the power to control Eggman's mechs, and they use the mechs to flip and try and kill Eggman, because he's been enslaving them. This game is so weird. And sadly, the biggest thing to come of this is that Eggman's Cubot loses his body in the process. Oh man, not Cubot. I don't know what I'm going to do without that guy. Eggman informs Sonic that the Zeti possess the power to manipulate electromagnetic fields, which allows them to control Eggman's machinery. In an unlikely turn of events, Sonic, Tails, and Eggman team up to stop the Zeti from following through with the plans of sucking the planet's life force to make themselves stronger. After defeating the third member of the Deadly Six, Master Zeke, the trio head towards an Eggman factory, which for some reason looks exactly like the one that the Deadly Six are in, but okay. And this sets up the plot device that Sonic and Tails are arguing and disagreeing with each other over working with Eggman. After defeating the only girl, Zeti, Xena, Tails sticks Cubot's head onto a nearby mech, which turns Cubot aggressive, attacking Tails in the process. Sonic shouts at Tails and basically calls him stupid, and that he could have got himself killed, which results in a further strain on their relationship. In Silent Forest, Zavok set a trap for Sonic, with the aim of turning him into a robot to make him their slave. This trap is in the form of an animal capsule that Sonic can't help but activate, even against Tails' wishes again. Tails saves Sonic from the trap and gets transported to the Deadly Six's base, with Sonic becoming depressed. To represent Sonic's depression, the final Zeti, Zor, is revealed, and he embodies every stereotype of a depressed teen. After defeating him and moving on to the next set of stages, Zavok presents himself to Sonic, claiming that Tails is being turned into a robot. Following this, we are shown the Earth being deprived of its energy, with Amy contacting Sonic asking him to save the world for everybody. The scene then jump cuts to Tails sneakily foiling the Deadly Six's plans of turning him into a robot by using a wooden stick from a burger to reprogram the machine, preventing him from becoming enslaved. Then at the same time, Sonic and Eggman progress towards the Deadly Six's base, which is found in the middle of a volcano. As three of the Zeti begin attacking the pair, Eggman sacrifices himself to save Sonic in an emotional sequence that rivals any of the saddest films you have seen. Sonic is now all alone, with no Tails, Knuckles, Amy or Eggman. Zavok and the remaining Deadly Six ambush Sonic and try to use Robot Tails to kill him. But as we already know, Tails isn't really a robot and was just pranking them so he could get back to Sonic and help out. After defeating the Deadly Six, Sonic and Tails head towards the energy reactor to shut it down. But strangely, it's already off. You see, Dr. Eggman? He didn't actually die, of course. He turned off the extractor himself. And now, Eggman is the final boss of Sonic Lost World after revealing his true motivation of wanting to conquer the Earth. Sonic defeats Eggman, Eggman falls to the Earth, Tails fixes the extractor and returns all the energy, Sonic and Tails reunite with Amy and Knuckles, and the fate of the Deadly Six is left unknown. I've spoken a lot about the plot of this game, and that's because compared to the others that released in the 2010s, there is a lot going on here. All the other stories are simple. Eggman does something, and Sonic defeats him. Whereas here, we have a new set of villains, a few character arcs and twists that I welcomed when I first played the game. I remember posting on Miiverse saying how much I liked the story, and I was met with others laughing at me because they found it awful. Now that I'm older, I can admit that it's pretty laughable, but I still hold appreciation for the writers attempting something new. The main problem is the unnecessary character arc of Sonic being a massive dick to Tails. I haven't sworn at all in any of these videos, but there is no other way to describe Sonic than him being a massive dick. He is horrible to Tails, weirdly preferring Eggman over him rather than trusting his best friend of over 20 years. The only reason Eggman is hanging out with Sonic and Tails is because Sonic didn't trust Tails enough to shut down the extractor, which is a bit upsetting. And also because Sonic went against Tails telling him not to kick the conch out of Eggman's hand. While I'm glad that Eggman is in the plot more, and Mike Pollock's performance is amazing, I still would have liked it more if it didn't cost Sonic and Tails their relationship. There's nothing redeeming about Sonic in this game. It's clear they wanted to give him an emotional character arc, but I don't think this version of an emotional character arc works very well. The newcomers to Deadly Six, I'm also not very fond of. Every character is a walking stereotype, and it's really annoying. I don't mind Zavok or Zaz, but the other four are either boring or excruciatingly annoying. I particularly hate Zomom, Xena, and Zor. Master Zeke is just boring. Regarding Zomom, the whole joke with this guy is that he's stupid. He likes to eat, and he's fat. That's like Peppa Pig level of humour when they all laugh at Daddy Pig because he's fat. That's like preschool, age 3 to 5 level of humour. So does this game have the same target demographic as Sonic Colors did, or is this game supposed to be different? I also just don't think that this character is suitable for Sonic. Like, isn't Big the big, fat, lovable oaf? Why do we need another character who is stupid and just eats all the time? I don't get it. Xena is rather annoying. She's just a stereotypical white girl who only cares about her looks. Every scene she's doing something with her nails, whether it's applying paint or filing them down, and the whole joke is that she cares about her looks. It's a bit disappointing that she's the only female member of the Deadly Six, and her whole character is based around beauty standards. But she is nothing compared to the worst one, which is Zor. Zor is awful. His whole character is being a depressed nihilist, one who is annoyed by life and everything around him. He's so annoying. I don't see why they felt the need to make one of the villains so insufferable. In Sonic Lost World, a cool thing that happens is the villains speak directly to Sonic during the stages before a boss fight. While this is cool on paper, it leaves me having to listen to the annoying dribble that comes out of Zor's mouth about how we're all going to die anyway, and him asking, why does Sonic run fast? If the Deadly Six were trying to be funny or satirise common character tropes found in cartoons and other video games, it falls flat on its face. The writing itself is on the same level as Sonic Colors, full of cheesy one-liners and jokes. You'll probably still cringe at the attempts of humour. While I can scratch off Sonic Colors writing due to it being more light-hearted, Sonic Lost World's attempt at being more serious is harder to put up with, especially with how poor the jokes and characters are. I think what happened is the writers realised the complaints with Sonic Colors' story being too bare bones, and wanted to up the ante and create a more engaging and deeper story. While I welcome the attempt at doing so, it can be hard to put up with at times. I don't think the premise is all that bad, it's mainly just the execution. But in the grand scheme of things, I do still think it is a pretty passable story for a Sonic game, and the jokes didn't really irk me that much either. I've briefly touched upon it, but Sonic Lost World's gameplay is different to anything the series has ever seen. Mario Kishimoto must have really wanted to experiment with the permission he was given, because this game doesn't have any similarities to Unleashed, Colors, or Generations besides the fact that it features Sonic characters and that it's a 3D platformer. That might be a red flag for some people, but I welcome this difference in gameplay. You see Mario experimenting with every game, so why can't Sonic do something similar as long as it's done right? The main thing people took an issue with is the ridiculously reduced run speed of Sonic. For the first time in his career, Sonic is now sporting a run button. That's right, a run button. It's different to the boost button in other games because that just adds to Sonic's speed. Even if you don't press the boost button, Sonic is still running. But in Sonic Lost World, if you don't have the run button pressed down, Sonic will take a few measly steps and just walk around. I remember this caused outrage leading up to the game's release, but I for one was never bothered by this design choice. I understand that fundamentally Sonic is supposed to go fast, he is the Blue Blair after all, but I welcome this difference in gameplay. It's not like Sonic would be slow forever, and it's not like the stages are the same length as the previous 3 Boost games, because then they take hours to complete. No, the whole game has been designed around this mechanic of choosing whether to make Sonic run or not, leading to a very platform heavy game that I actually enjoy. And anyway, you can always just chain together spin dashes to get some sense of speed. The second major design choice is the tubular level design. A lot of the stages in this game are based on spheres and cylinders that offer multiple pathways and different challenges depending on what route you go. The first stage, Windy Hill Act 1, encapsulates all of this and is a really solid introduction to the game. You're presented with 3 different paths. If you just go straight from spawn, there will be a few bridges with robotic fish and a turning wooden log with spikes to jump over. There's also a secret red ring if you use the new free running ability to climb up a tree. The second path sees you using the returning laser wisp to navigate around spikes in the ground, while being rewarded with an animal capsule to free. The third path is filled with dash panels and springs to propel you towards the other side of the cylinder, helping you progress quickly through the stage. Finally, there is a fourth path that is similar to the third but features a golden launcher at the end that sends Sonic into an entirely different part of the stage than the other 3 paths take him. Level design like this is something that is essential to any Sonic game, and I applaud Lost World for making it clear from the get-go that the idea of multiple pathways are at the forefront of their mind. Now it's not just about getting to the end of the stage, it's about what pathways you use to get there, what new parts of the stage you discover, and what hidden goodies and secrets you can find within them. Not every level is like this. but the ones that are like this are some of my favourites. It adds a lot of replay value and experimentation in finding the quickest way to the end of a level. It makes you want to go out your way to see everything that's possible to see. Level design like this was lacking in the 2010s for Sonic. I know colours and generations feature alternative paths too, but nothing as extreme as how Sonic Lost World implements it. The third and final major addition to Sonic Lost World is Sonic's free running abilities. If you're holding down the run button and run into a wall, a pole or a tree, Sonic will begin to climb up it, allowing him to reach greater heights. If you run into a wall from the side with a bit of momentum, Sonic will keep his speed and run along the wall, helping him reach springs in areas that he wouldn't normally be able to. You can jump from wall to wall if they're close enough, and even spin dash to keep your speed if you feel like you're gonna fall off. I actually love the idea of Sonic being able to free run. I think it's a natural progression in his abilities, and I'm surprised they haven't attempted something similar before. I don't think it's used to the full extent that it could have been, but this is the mechanic's debut, so it's clear they were testing the waters before jumping headfirst into making it a big gimmick. Sadly, this is the only game that features free running, which is a bit of a head scratcher. I think there's a lot of potential here that Sonic teams seem to not want to tap into. From what I've seen, it's used a lot more in the 3DS version, but apparently it feels like overkill in that game. What is here in the Wii U version, for me, is relatively fun to use, and I hope this mechanic returns in the future. Sonic's arsenal has expanded, with the run button and free running, but he also comes equipped with a brand new kick attack that is essential for him for defeating certain type of enemies. You can kick projectiles back their way to destroy them, or kick attack and follow it up with a homing attack to finish them off. The homing attack has also been upgraded and simplified too. You can lock onto multiple enemies at once to quickly eliminate them, and you can also charge it up by standing there and letting Sonic lock on for a while. It makes boss fights a breeze as they go down in a matter of seconds. The stages themselves I actually quite like. The themes are what you've come to expect from the Sonic series. A zone that's similar to Green Hill, in Windy Hill Zone, a desert zone, Desert Ruins, an ice zone, Frozen Factory, but the game also splashes in its own identity into the mix. The remaining zones, Tropical Coast, Silent Forest, Sky Road and Lava Mountain, are different atmospheres for Sonic to run through that he hasn't really done before. I understand people might have expected a lot more craziness from a game set on an entirely new planet, but it feels like Sonic Team wanted to keep it grounded in reality and keep it similar to our own world through the environment, for the most part. The zany personality that Sonic stages usually have is still prevalent here, like Desert Ruins Act 3 being entirely comprised of sweets, and Frozen Factory Act 3 being the casino level that is a staple of the series. I enjoy a lot of the stages here. There isn't a particular one that I hate or I hold a disdain for. There are some standouts though that people seem to take an issue with, particularly Tropical Coast Act 2 that sees you guide a giant fruit into a blender to create a stream of juice that Sonic jumps into to progress through the level. I for one don't mind this. It's something that wouldn't be possible to achieve with Sonic's higher speed found in the other games. Other stages like Sky Road Act 3 are a bit of a miss, but I wouldn't consider it awful. Sonic is free falling in the sky, being kept up by blasts of air. You have to guide him in between enemies and carefully make your way along with the auto-scrolling forcing you to progress. It's not one of my favourite stages, far from it, but I don't think it's as bad as people seem to claim. Sonic Lost World does have a fixation with having at least one stage per zone centered around a gimmick, but I enjoy almost all of them. They're not awful like in Sonic 4 Episode 1, it truly feels like a lot of time has been put into developing these new ideas that they must have been throwing around the development office. My personal favourite of these gimmicky levels are the rail grinding stages, Tropical Coast Act 3 and Lava Mountain Act 2. Tropical Coast Act 3 comes first, foreshadowing and teaching you things that will help you later. For example, green rails are there to help you go fast, red rails slow you down, you need to jump over minecarts and navigate 2D sections successfully. The first grinding stage is fairly easy, but the second one ramps up the difficulty a tremendous amount, and you really have to work towards reaching the end. This sense of progression is good, and it builds up the final boss in a nice way. It also helps that these stages are accompanied by my favourite piece of music in the game, and perhaps one of my favourite stage themes in the whole series. It's truly beautiful, and grinding on the rails and taking it all in is a nice feeling. Deviating slightly to talk about the music, as a whole, it's great. It has peaceful moments that fill up the atmosphere and provide the stages with their own personalities and charm. While some stages do share tracks, it feels like almost all of them have unique themes that help excel the vibe of the game. The vibe that it's fun, quirky, enjoyable, hip, it's the new Sonic. While I'm not fond of the Deadly Six theme, mainly because of how overbearing it is, the composers still knock it out of the park and make the rest of the game feel like a grand adventure with the other tracks. Otani and Oguchi did so well with the Sonic Colors soundtrack, and this soundtrack as well, proving that they can create music for whatever vibe Sonic Team is going for, and can produce better tunes than the drivel we were force-fed in the Sonic 4 titles. Back to the stages. One stage I do understand the hate for is Frozen Factory 2, in which Sonic rolls himself into a giant snowball and moves around the stage that way. I'll admit, this is stupid. It doesn't help that you see Sonic roll himself into this ball immediately at the start of the stage. Why couldn't he use his legs? Well, it's because they wanted to shoehorn in these automated events that see Sonic rolling along the track with pool balls rotating either side of him, eventually resulting in Sonic landing on a pool table in which he has to pocket all the balls to receive a red ring. It is a bit silly, and it can be really hard to pocket the balls if you're going for the red rings too, so I can understand the frustrations with this level. One truly bad stage out of 28 isn't awful though. It's just a slight blemish on an otherwise solid set of stages. And come on, let's be real, this stage is not on the same level as some of the worst Sonic stages ever. Would you rather play Space Colony Arc in Shadow the Hedgehog, or this 2-minute snowball stage in Sonic Lost World? I know what I'd rather play.
Damn.
I've hinted at it, but the game also comes with levels entirely comprising of 2D, and has no problem sprinkling in 2D sections into the 3D stages. The 2D though in this game is pretty solid. The game teases you with a brief stage of 2D in Wind Hill Act 2, but from there it develops further, giving you new obstacles to face, different challenges to experience, and as you progress through the game, they take advantage of the zone that the stage takes place in, so they all feel fresh and different from each other. For example, the previously mentioned Windy Hill Act 2 is entirely different to Tropical Coast Act 4 or Silent Forest Act 2. It stops it from feeling samey, and it helps that the platforming is solid too. It can be a bit annoying if you have the run button held down and Sonic runs up the tiny ledges, but it's such a minor issue that I have no problem with it. The free running is also incorporated into these segments too, with Sonic being able to run up walls to go to new routes, or you can make the challenges easier for yourself and skip waiting around for a platform to move upwards just by running up the wall. When the 2D segments are put alongside the 3D segments, I don't feel like they clash and remove the flow of the game like in previous entries, and that's simply because this game's focus isn't about going fast in the first place. You take a game like Sonic Colors where you have the boost formula, and of course you don't want to be waiting around in the 2D sections, but if you have a slower game from the get-go in Sonic Lost World, it doesn't really matter if the 2D sections are slower. I don't mind the 2D implementation here, I rather enjoy the change of pace it brings to the game. I don't think they're as good as Sonic Generations' attempt at recreating the classic 2D feel, but they're still fun to play. Sonic Lost World does take a note out of Sonic Colors' book though, as the Wisp powers return here. They are so underutilized, it makes you wonder why they were brought back. The returning Wisps operate the same way that they did in Colors, but they're such an afterthought here that they feel pointless. For example, I have mentioned the Cyan Wisp, but the way it's used in Sonic Lost World is like you use it to skip segments of the level. It never takes you to alternative paths to find red rings like in Sonic Colors. The returning Hover Wisp also slows the game down to a grinding halt that I always avoid using it. You don't have to use the Wisps if you don't want to, and I advise you not to use the Hover Wisp if you play this game. The Drill Wisp has it a little better though, as you can take it underwater in Tropical Coast, and it has a brief moment to shine in Silent Forest. but it's still not very good. The Rocket Wisp is used in one stage, I think, and that's it. So overall, not very enjoyable experiences. I always try to avoid using them when I can. But that didn't stop the developers from creating more Wisp powers though, that are also just as useless. The new Crimson Wisp turns Sonic into an eagle so he can soar the sky, but there's no reason to do so unless you want to get more rings. There's a Magenta Wisp that turns Sonic into a music note so he can get across gaps, which makes no sense and is annoying to use. A new Indigo Wisp turns Sonic into an asteroid, allowing him to destroy everything nearby and to access secret areas that house red rings. Finally, the two new pointless Wisps are the Black and Grey Wisps. The Black Wisp turns Sonic into a bomb that he can roll around for a bit before he explodes. I don't understand the point of its existence, and you can only obtain it through the Nights into Dream bonus stage on the PC version. On the Wii U version though, you'd receive this Wisp through the additional DLC Sonic Team create for the game that is built around Yoshi's Woolly World and The Legend of Zelda, which was quite cool when it was released. You can also obtain this Wisp by interacting with the Miiverse too, which is quite crazy. I told you me mentioning Miiverse would be relevant, and I do like that posting on Miiverse unlocks items in a game, but the reward for doing so here is horrendous. Why would you ever use this Black Wisp? I don't get it. It's just a bomb and it just explodes. It literally does nothing. The Grey Wisp is exclusive to the Wii U version and can only be used in the multiplayer, so I have no experience with it or what it does. Apparently it allows Sonic to create a shockwave. Okay. The Wisps in this game are easily the worst part about it because no thought went into how they would function throughout the levels. There's no point in them being here, nobody would miss them if they weren't in this game. It also makes more sense for them to be Sonic Colors exclusive since they play into the game's intergalactic space park, and the game's title of course. It's time to move on to the boss fight, and with the exception of the final boss, every boss in this game is a member of the Deadly Six. Each one of them occupies their own zone, and you must fight them twice per zone, and then a final time with the boss rush in Lava Mountain at the end of the game. You fight each Deadly Six member on the second act of each zone, and fight them a final time on the fourth act. I have to admit, these boss fights are pretty laughable and are some of the easiest in the series. I'd honestly put them on the same level as the rival fights in Sonic Adventure. They're that bad. I imagine the intent was with the first encounter to be a tease of what's to come, and then the second encounter to be a full-blown brawl that is more challenging, but all the fights are so easy that you can finish it in a matter of seconds. You can defeat any of the Deadly Six with two fully charged homing attacks, making the battlefield pointless and a waste of time. The final boss is also hilariously disappointing too. If you were expecting them to take advantage of Sonic's new moves or the new Wisp powers, then you'd be wrong. It's literally a copy and paste of Sonic Colors' final boss with a fresh coat of paint. There's nothing else to say about it except that it's a disappointing boss fight that is the cherry on top of the other weaker fights that have been put into the game. I think it's about time for me to wrap up talking about Sonic Lost World. Overall, the game is a standout amongst Sonic's career as it's unlike anything else that's been released up until this point, or after for that matter. I enjoy a lot of elements about this game, and I think that it was treated unfairly upon release. It's fun, it's quirky, it has its own personality that shines through the levels. While there may be some disappointing elements in Sonic Lost World, like the story, the boss fight, or how the Wisps were implemented, it doesn't take away from the core platforming and other gameplay elements that make the game enjoyable and hold it together. I have a blast playing this game. I've played through it 3 times in my life, which is more than I have played Sonic Colors, and I could happily play it again. This game allures me with its unconventional stage design and uniqueness, and on the Wii U version, I went out of my way to collect all the red rings so I could unlock Super Sonic. I enjoyed it that much. There's also 2 bonus stages exclusive to the Wii U version that I brushed up upon, that being the Yoshi's Woolly World bonus stage and the Legend of Zelda bonus stage. They see Sonic interacting with different game worlds and even sporting a Link outfit. Also, a third bonus stage based on Night into Dream is a boss rush of the Deadly Six fights reskinned to fit Night characters. This game is reeking with personality and charm that a lot of people seem to forget about, and I think in the grand scheme of how the 2010s went for Sonic, personality and charm goes a long way. I've seen people call this one of the worst Sonic games ever released, and I mean, really? I've reviewed at least 2 other Sonic games at the point of making this video that are worse than Sonic Lost World, and that doesn't even include one game that I have yet to make a video about. I'm going to drop a massive bomb here. Arguably, I prefer Sonic Lost World over Sonic Colors.
No way!
I never felt like I was limited in what I could do. I never felt stuck on a path. I didn't have to wait around anywhere near the amount I did in Sonic Colors. Sonic Lost World also has a nice difficulty curve compared to Colors, with the game getting harder the further you progress. And Sonic Lost World is about 2 hours longer than Sonic Colors as well. It might be controversial to say, but I think I do prefer Sonic Lost World over Sonic Colors. That doesn't make Sonic Colors a bad game at all, but I just think I like this one a little bit more, and I do think it has been treated unfairly by the fanbase. Yes, I know people crave for Sonic to go fast, but at the heart of it, the Sonic series is about platforming too, and I think Sonic Lost World does it well. Maybe it's because this was the first Sonic game that I bought for myself. Maybe it's because it came out on the Wii U during a time when there were no games released on the system. Or maybe it's because this was the first time I was truly engaged and hyped for a Sonic game. But I can't bring myself to hate on this game as much as other people do. It's a fun game for any platformer fan. After Sonic Lost World, Sonic Boom came and went, leaving a massive stain on the franchise. What could Sega do next to reel everybody back in?